I didn't realize it was 12 already.
It creeps up on you. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays and Thursdays with Care Patrol. We're so happy to have you here. It is, again, a beautiful day in Birmingham. The sun is shining, a little chilly, but I kind of like that. I know it's the last, hope it's the last little gasp of cold before summer and spring come to join us. So today is Tuesday. We're joined again by our friend John Holliman of Bradford and Holliman. Bradford and Holliman is an elder law firm that's been serving Birmingham and really greater Alabama, also an office in Scottsboro for a number of years, longer than I've been in business, and I've been in business since 2011. John is a fourth generation Alabama lawyer. His grandfather was a lawyer, went to UA, graduated in 1914. And the Holliman family, I think if you know them, has a history of service in their communities. And one of the services that John is graciously doing for our community is presenting today on the veterans benefits. So today we'll be listening to John tell us about the changes in the VA pensions that have occurred since 2018. Some of us be unaware of these because COVID, as we all know, has interrupted all of our lives. But John Holliman will present to us on the VA aid and attendance pension and other service-connected benefits. We are admitting people right and left, and I need to go ahead then and let you know that I have made a mistake. Which is not uncommon. John's laughing because he knows it's true.
No,
I made a mistake, and on the website it says that we're doing Medicaid next on our next presentation on Thursday. We are not. We've already done that. It's recorded on our website, which is simply carepatrol.com/advisors/Sean Barnes. So if you need to catch the Medicaid information, and we're going to do this regularly, so we'll have different presenters coming in because I think Medicaid is an issue that affects all of us across our clinical practices, no matter who we work with, whether it's children or adults. Or those with mental illness or other disabilities. So we're going to do a lot on Medicaid, I think, in the upcoming series, but our initial Medicaid has already been recorded, is on the website. So if that's what you're looking for next week, please be aware that next week is Elder Law 101. But today, again, we are happy to have John Holliman with Bradford and Holliman, who will tell us about the VA aid and attendance pension and the changes to it. I want to go ahead and do a little housekeeping while everyone's getting settled. I hope you have your lunch in front of you, something to drink, your feet are propped and you're ready to go. So we have a survey process in order to keep this a live CEU. We obviously are live, but then we have an evaluation process following that lets us know that you are here and in attendance. And that is through a SurveyMonkey website. And the SurveyMonkey web link is https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/ all uppercase, V as in victory, G as in go, D as in dog, P as in Paul, 9, C as in cat, X. One more time for those of you who are participating by phone. The course evaluation link is https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/all uppercase, V as in victory, G as in go, D as in dog, P as in Paul, 9, C as in cat, X. That's our Survey Monkey evaluation for later today. I've posted it already in the chat room for those of you who are viewing the chat room or have the capacity to do so. We will later in the presentation provide you with a CEU code word. That code word helps us know, again, that you were here, that you listened to full 55 minutes to our live CEU. I'll give the code word later, but it is a locked evaluation, so you will need the code word. And there's often confusion about that. So I'll go ahead and say it on the front end. The survey is locked. You need the code word, so do listen for it. And as we've got really a lot of folks in now, I believe that it's time to let John do his thing and tell us about the VA pension. And again, thank you, John. You've been here with us all month, and we truly, deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks, Sean, for the opportunity. Like I said, with COVID, it's been a while since we've been out there on the stump. We give the presentations at churches and nursing homes and whatnot. But so today I wanted to talk to you about veterans benefits. And what I did was I recapped the presentations we did recently over the last couple weeks, 3 weeks, in case some of you were not able to hear those. So we'll do a recap of the last 2 presentations just briefly, and then we'll jump into everything ties together in elder law, which I understand, you've got Elder Law 101 coming up. So if you heard this will tie in nicely to your next upcoming presentation. So the recap of our last 2 presentations. So what we did was, has the client properly planned for long-term care? That's long-term custodial health care. Is the family familiar with the options? And we're going to move quickly through this because we want to get to VA. And then we talked about, does the patient have capacity to sign? So lawyers are not doctors, but we do have the legal ability to determine if someone has the mental capacity, the legal competency to do a specific thing. That is to even hire us, to sign a will, to sign a power of attorney. Is there anyone that has legal authority already over the client? So we always start with capacity, or we have not done our job as a professional, charged with serving the public. So we talked about power of attorneys. Are you looking at the most recent one? The takeaway on this was, don't think that every power of attorney is the same. There are short little forms that allow you to do some things, and there are more detailed power of attorneys. And even though Alabama has a statutory power of attorney, it's not the best, and that's not an insult to the person that wrote it. It's meant to be very basic. So these really are legal decisions. There's durable power of attorneys, conditional, financial, healthcare, springing power of attorneys that don't come into existence except on a certain event. So that was the takeaway from the power of attorneys in a nutshell. And then if you don't have a power of attorney, you have to go into the probate court and ask for permission to have legal authority over the person. That would be a guardianship. Guardianship is over the person, and conservatorship is over the money. So there are times when we do not file for conservatorship, but we only file for guardianship. The guardian can deal with the person's income, but cannot deal with the assets. So if there's house, bank accounts, other than checking, and even if the checking has assets in it. So conservatorship is court-appointed legal representative to handle someone's assets. It's probate while you're alive. So think time and money. Anytime you hear the word probate, we would probably prefer not to be there. I've moved some slides around, and I wanted to mention this one. So if you actually have no idea where to start, we provide this neat little thing that's called an Elder Care Action Plan, and it takes all this data and puts it into a coherent thing for the family, the elderly folks, their children. And we had a question on one of the workshops about how do you get other children, adult children on board. Well, this is a way to do it. This is a written planning letter. But again, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it is a good starting point. We meet with families all day long, every day. So we're in the trenches just like you guys are. And of course, this was a review even when we did it the first time. You all know the levels of care. In-home care, independent living, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing care, and the VA nursing homes. And so that's obvious to us that are in the business, but it may not be obvious to the lay people coming in. They misinterpret independent and they get them crossed up. They don't understand exactly what nursing home is, or they think Medicaid, Medicare cover different costs. So we went through this and we talked about the ways to pay for it in the first presentation a few weeks ago, Medicare and rehab. We recommend long-term care insurance highly. There are different ways to buy it. Just like anything, you go to a good insurance advisor. You can see what your insurance advisor offers, but some of them are captive. They can only sell a certain product. You can pay for long-term custodial health care out of your private estate funds, or if you sent your children to school and they're now doctors or investment bankers, they could pay for your private health care. We're going to talk about VA, and of course, Medicaid can pay for nursing home. We have any given time, a couple of dozen Medicaid applications that we're actually doing for people that may or may not have very difficult situations, transfer penalties and selling things for less than fair market value, gifts during the 5-year look back, or multiple accounts that just need to be managed during the 5-year look back. The business office for many nursing homes send us those cases because they say, well, we don't want to take the chance that an upcoming first day of the month that we've done something wrong to get somebody otherwise eligible. That's Medicaid's term. Otherwise eligible means in the nursing home and otherwise financially eligible. So we do that day in and day out. We actually have my wife, Melanie, my law partner, and 2 other people that do Medicaid. It's that labor intensive. We talked about the different types of long-term care insurance. We won't go into that, but again, it's highly recommended. Melanie and I went out and got it to put our money where our mouth is. It's very useful to have it. The older you get, the less leverage you have to buy it. It's underwritten differently than life insurance, although it can be an add-on to life insurance. So if you want to, if you see these problems every day, yes, I'm telling you to go spend money on premium dollars. But if you think of spending even $500 a month on premium for a married couple, if that nets you, $5,000 a month for 3 or 5 years of care, then that's a win. And again, there are different ways to buy it where if you don't ever use it, you don't lose it. In other words, you get something back for your money. So we talked about long-term care insurance, since the cost of long-term custodial health care is only going up. So if you shift that risk over to the long-term care insurance company, that probably is a good idea. By paying for something over time, right? Paying premiums over time. or even paying a lump sum. So the clock is always ticking when it comes to doing estate planning or a long-term care planning, which is elder law, elder care planning, elder care law planning, any variation of those names. So we all know about Medicaid's 5-year look back, and unacceptable transfers and things that Medicaid will call a penalty. And as Sean mentioned, in 2018, October 17th of 2018, the VA put in a 36-month look back. They had been working on that for many, many years, and they published a rule, a 127-page set of rules in spring of 2015. So that means they had been working on it for years before that. And so they published that, and then they made it effective October 17th, well, midnight of October 17th, so effectively October 18th of 2018. And they only gave us about 3 weeks notice because they didn't want smart lawyers and estate planners to figure a way to get a bunch of applications filed under the wire. So on my conference table for years, I had a crystal ball, a little ball, a glass ball on a little pedestal. And we would have jokingly say, if this thing only worked, I could tell you what to do. I could tell you that you didn't need to spend money on estate planning. You didn't need to spend money on long-term custodial care, that you would never need Medicaid. But obviously we don't have a crystal ball. So we have to make the best decisions with the information at hand, right? What is likely to happen? And in the first presentation, we gave some statistics about, how likely we are all to need long-term custodial health care, and how likely it is, or how long it would be if we entered a nursing home. 2.5, 3 years, maybe still the average. There's not a ton of good studies on that. So again, we don't have a way of knowing the future. So the earlier you plan, the better. And that's hard to get people to understand. It just is, human nature works against us on that. So here we get to the meat of it. So Sean and I were talking about this before y'all all came on, and we all felt probably, before COVID, a couple of 3 years, we did a lot of presentations on this. There's some obviously more elder law attorneys than us in town, and everybody may have gotten a little tired of this, but with 2018 happening, it's probably time to talk about it again. We still do it on a regular basis. We still do the pre-planning through the 3-year look back. So again, this is not service related. This is not a benefit that veterans get because they were injured or got an illness associated with their military service. This is called a non-service connected disability pension, but we all tend to call it aid and attendance. But that's actually the third level of non-service connected pension. And why does everybody say aid and attendance? Because that's the higher dollar figure. If you're going to go after the benefits, you're going to go after the highest dollar figure. So the 2022 figures for a single veteran is $2,050. A veteran with a spouse or a dependent child is $2,431. These are monthly. And for a surviving spouse of a wartime veteran is $1,318 per month. And a lot of people don't know that if Medicaid approves you to pay your nursing home and you're getting the $1,318 or the $2,050, then that benefit goes to $90 a month. So you get to keep $30 of your own money out of your income if you're a single person, and then the 90 that VA reduced to. So technically you have $120 a month of money to spend that is not counted against you for your income or resource limits. So that's always a source of confusion. And then just while we're on Medicaid, this actually, the wartime, the aid and attendance is considered reimbursement for medical expenses. So it's actually not supposed to count towards your income cap limit for VA. But there's a lot of confusion on that. In Alabama being an income cap state, where we have to use the qualified income trust. So even as much as I know about VA, we still use a QIT, qualified income trust, or a Miller trust to run the VA benefits through, because we don't want to risk the Medicaid caseworker saying that they had too much money from our otherwise eligible date. We don't want to get a month, 2 months, 3 months in, and they say, well, you should have set up a QIT. So that is an interesting fact, even though this benefit is considered to be a reimbursement of medical expenses. That's not a problem in other states, the caseworkers, but again, other states may not be income cap states for Medicaid. So these are the monthly figures that we're working off here in 2022. And as you can see by this, they are not a panacea. They are not an all-encompassing solution. I mean, $2,000 a month for a wartime veteran does not pay for nursing home. But I'm going to show you some examples of how useful these things can be coming up. So I call this my 4 hurdle speech. If you take away anything from the presentation, this is an easy way to remember how to triage or to analyze if somebody's possibly eligible or able to be eligible. The VA makes that decision. They're quick to tell you. So the wartime service, and I'll show you that, asset limit, income limit, and their health or their ability to do activities of daily living, right? ADLs, we know what those are: dressing, eating, ambulating, toileting, and hygiene. So that's the easiest way, and I'll go through these and show you how you can triage somebody to see if they're and there are volumes written on this, on each one of these things. So in other words, not everything, well, I should say nothing is simple. Nothing is simple. Melly and I will be next week, we'll be in Orlando for the Veterans Advocate Groups of America, the first in-person one since COVID, since March of 2020. They did hold it in March of 2020, and we did go right ahead of COVID. And, we got back, it was uneventful, as far as nobody contracted anything, but then the world came to a screeching halt shortly thereafter. So this is the first one in 2 years, and it's where we learn about, what other practitioners are doing around the country and best practices, and we learn the secrets. We share the secrets because the VA doesn't publish a whole lot. They don't publish these decisions that they give out to veterans. They don't even publish the decisions from the Board of Veterans Appeals. So it's not like a court. Lawyers can go into online services, and used to we go into what they call reporters, and that literally sent you supplements every month that said what the case is, so you can know what the law is. There's statutory law and case law. But that's the 4 hurdle speech. So So wartime service, and you'll see some differing opinions on this. So yeah, if you've heard something different, this is close. But again, there are many exceptions to the rules. And some of them are very esoteric. They're very hard to find the exceptions. And, just from 12, 13 years of practicing and going to these things where we're sharing ideas is where we find out. So 90 days of service, 1 day during these wartime periods, cannot have a dishonorable discharge. However, there are ways to upgrade the discharge. If you served and you were discharged for a service-related disability, and so I'll explain that. You say, why? Well, if somebody's getting service connected, why do they need non-service connected? We'll explain that. And the VA requires you need help with 2 activities of daily living: dressing, eating, ambulating, toileting, or hygiene, or bathing. You could say those a different way. So 2 out of 5, and the VA kind of beats around the bush on that. In 2018, they did add the requirement that if you have dementia, even though you're physically fine and somebody tells you to go take a bath, but you don't know how to take a bath, that counts. So if you've forgotten how to ambulate, because your cognitive problem, and the VA does some instrumental activities of daily living, although they do not qualify you for the benefit. They are more evidence. Those are like cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, medication management. That's the biggest one that people think of for is an instrumental. It's not a true ADL under the VA's definition. Now, long-term care insurance companies have their own definition of ADLs, and they usually have 6. And that's what they determine whether they're going to pay a claim. And that's governed by the policy. So you may have run into this if you had patients that, you need to get their long-term care paying to pay caregivers or independent living, and because if the family's asking you to help them, and so countable income, so they call this IVAP, income for VA purposes. So what the VA did, and this is totally confusing, is that the bright line test is supposed to be for assets. They say I started out at 123, and now a couple of years later, we're up to 138.4. But here's where this will bite you. Did you know that your income, your monthly income, is counted? If you multiply it times 12, you add that to your assets. Hardly nobody understands that. So people, if you apply for somebody, and you have to be accredited, unless you're doing it for a family member. If you do one application for a family member, the VA doesn't say you're violating any. But if you're out there and you're not accredited, and they do accredit non-lawyers, then you're going to get a letter that says you cannot, you can't do what you're doing. But your annual income is counted with your assets in that 138. That is so confusing. Now, if your income is offset by your medical expenses, now it's just your assets. That's a little bit of a brain teaser. So stay with me on that. So go back to the wartime services a minute, and then we'll come back to the income and the assets. But these are totally arbitrary as far as the day that it ends. I won't say totally arbitrary, but the VA has to have rules, right? Think Army rules, military rules, they go by rules. So they have to have a start and end date for things to say that you're eligible. So your 1 day of wartime service, and you will hear people that say that 90 days of the service has to be within these periods. And the 90 days has to be consecutive, so you'll hear all kinds of things about this, but this is rough. But you have to have 1 day of service at least in these wartime periods. So again, look how arbitrary that appears. August 5th, 64 in the fourth bullet point, you had to be in country. So if you didn't have the right time period in country, you could be, you'd be wartime service, but not considered to be eligible for this benefit. So
we have a question, John, about one of our folks is asking. So she says, so a wartime quote, boots on the ground, quote, officer with income and assets is not eligible for A&A.
If they're boots on the ground and they serve, well, if they're boots on the ground, they could have served at any time in this. So in theater, and they had the 90 days, their income could be offset by medical expenses, and it depends on how much they have in assets. So that's a loaded question. So that's why it takes some analysis to figure out if they're eligible. But let's say they have more than 138.5 in assets, but they're using, CarePatrol found them a great assisted living, and they're paying their income out to assisted living. And so their income is offset. So if they have under $138,500, I'm rounding, in assets, they would be eligible. But if they have more than that, we might have to do something to where we plan to get them approved after somewhat of a little spin down, or for a few months in the future. So we don't take no for an answer, because there's more than one way to skin that cat. So they earn the benefit by serving. So that's the first thing we want you to recognize. But the VA says that earning of the benefit doesn't automatically guarantee that they get it. And that makes a lot of families a little upset, because they know what their loved one went through to earn it, but they have to earn it and be eligible. So that's, that's always an argument that's out there. And I agree with it. I agree they earned it. But the VA makes them be eligible in addition to the earning it. So let me give you a couple examples. This is actually my grandmother. Her name was Charlie Dean Wright, and she died 4 months shy of her 100th birthday. For 20 years, she lived with my mother after my grandfather that passed away. When I was in law school, that's how long ago that was. So my grandfather passed away. So my grandmother was living with my mother. So she was receiving $1,300 a month Social Security. Well, I was a real estate lawyer, can't even remember how many years ago that was, but 15 years ago, let's say. I started transitioning to this. I said, hey, Nanny, let me get you some money based on Granddad's wartime service. And she said, what do I have to do? And I said, well, we need to move some of your money around. She goes, no, you're not touching my money, which is a lot of elderly people will. So remember, she was 89 at the time. So she turned 90, and she said, well, tell me more about that money that you can get for Granddad's service. And I said, okay. So believe it or not, at that time, her monthly benefit was $1,008. Now you see it's indexed for inflation. It's up to $1,318. So assuming she would get $1,318 in this example, we brought her money up to $2,618 per month while she's living with my mother, who was caring for her. So my mother was able to use that money to do respite, to get some caregivers. And my grandmother went into the nursing home at 99 and a half. She stayed out of the nursing home from age 90 to 99 because of this benefit. So you can see it's not a perfect solution, but it does provide options. So let's take it a step further. So this is a real case. I changed her name, but this was one of the first cases I ever did after my grandmother. And I guess that's why these stick in my head. I've done dozens upon dozens since then, but they were just such a benefit to the family. So this widow received only $1,700 in Social Security. So we added the VA pension. So she's got over $3,000 a month. So she was able, the son who moved down here from Tennessee to Shelby County, he was able to get her independent living without tapping into her principal. Now, I know what y'all are thinking, you know, independent living now is more than 3,000. Although my mother-in-law is in an independent living, she's in an assisted living in a small town. And guess what it cost? $3,000 a month. So it's still possible. Now that's a small town. We're not in the Birmingham metro area. So, and then what this son actually did, he sold the farm and put that money in trust for her. So he had a additional amount of money other than her monthly income. I remember one of the first things he bought, this was a little tiny 90-year-old lady like my grandmother. He bought her a custom wheelchair because the youth wheelchairs would not even fit her. So he had one custom made so she could sit comfortably. And he had the money to do that because he didn't have to spend the proceeds of the house except to make her life better. And what was interesting about this case was he carved out the house that he grew up in out of the farm and sold the farm and kept the house to live there. I mean, so he still had enough money to take care of his mother. So, you know, that's a huge win. So this is Mrs. Smith. So she received more income. So she's got Social Security and her deceased husband's pension. So now we add the VA widow's pension. And I don't know why all these are widows. They're just, you know, good examples, but you know, the same thing can apply to the veteran. So we increased her monthly income to $3,400. So now she could possibly afford that assisted living without tapping too much into her principal. So let's say she sold a $250,000 house and she's got, let's say, $250 sitting there, and she only has to tap into her principal, the difference in $3,400 and the cost of the assisted living, then her money's going to probably last her the rest of her life. Now, if she needs a different level of care, obviously the cost is going up. But so you see how this can really make a difference by doubling their income. So this widow, and again, I just chose widow stories. I don't know why. I guess because they're so meaningful. So she receives $1,200 in a pension, and so we add the widow's pension, and then I put a note here on all these examples. We did this within 4 and 6 months from them coming in. But remember, now we've got the 3-year look back, right? So it depends on their assets. If they're under the 138.5, we could apply immediately if their income is offset by medical expense, which is not too hard to do. But here in this example, we can't raise her the $1,318 immediately because she's got $500,000. So she doesn't have a pre-plan. So what we're doing right now is, let's say we put that $500,000 in a trust with the responsible children as the trustee. She could apply for VA in 36 months, now get the $1,318. So she's got $3,600, and I didn't change it there in that bullet point, but the $3,600 offsets her $7,000 nursing home bill. So it's actually paying half of her nursing home without her tax, but then she uses her assets. So her funds may last for the remainder of her lifetime without her ever applying for Medicaid. See, because she's got the money in the bank. And if she had a house to sell on top of the money in the bank, she will never seek Medicaid to pay for her nursing home. She's got enough money. So the ideal thing is she stays in assisted living where she has more freedom and, you know, a higher quality of life perhaps. And her money lasts to pay for her long-term custodial care. You see how meaningful adding that, and that's just the widow's part. You know, the $2,050 is the veteran's monthly benefit, and close to $2,500 for a married couple. That's almost $29,000 a year tax-free for the married couple if both of them are living. That's huge. Then we really can see where they can afford assisted living, or one of them, if you know, if the levels of care are different for the husband and wife. So, but let's say on Mrs. Jones that we put, when she first comes to us, we put that $300,000 or $500,000 in a trust. An asset protection trust is what that stands for, a VA asset protection trust. And so after 5 years, it's not counted as a resource. So even though she had enough money to last, we hope, the rest of her life, we can ensure that she does by starting that five-year look back. So in our example, if she had to wait the 3 years to get VA, by funding that trust with her kids taking care of her and being the trustees of that trust, so they've already got control of the money if she gets dementia. Now they have to be trusted children. So just 2 more years after she gets VA, after the 3-year look back, she could get Medicaid. So let's say if this happens when she's 82 and she lives to be 100, that's 18 more years than, well, I've got 92 there, but you get the point. Medicaid would pay no matter how long she lived if we got her 300 or 500,000 off the table. And the family can use that money in the trust to get her a private room. They can pay for things that Medicaid doesn't cover. They can get her hair and nails done. They can, do all kinds of things. So notice this planning actually occurred at the time she went into the nursing home. This is a crisis plan, and we went through the 5-year look back, and then we were able to get Medicaid. So don't think there's nothing you can do. So this is an example of a VA benefits and the Medicaid kicking in over 5 years and benefiting the same person for the rest of their life. So that's
we have another question, John. Does the VA acknowledge Miller's and QIT trust?
Yeah, that's a great question. The VA does not recognize, that's a Medicaid phenomenon. So mentioned earlier, Alabama's an income cap state. So if you make over, and I always have to look up the number because Melanie and the 2 staff members do our Medicaid. Let's say it's $2,200. So maybe $2,230. But if you make over that, then you're automatically not qualified for Medicaid to pay your nursing home. However, if you run that through the QIT, Medicaid ignores that income. And they ignore that you're over the income limit. You still have to apply the income to the nursing home, right? And so what we said earlier, we run the VA money through there, because if you look at the VA money, it's going to pretty much put them over that 2,200, but we're not running it through there for VA purposes. We're running it through there for Medicaid purposes. So we wouldn't start a QIT when somebody applies for VA. We would offset their income with medical expense. That's totally confusing, and I probably lost some of you on that because it's a brain teaser. We touched on this in some of the other presentations, but I wanted to tell you about this because this is not aid and attendance, and this is not service connected. The wartime service times that we've been talking about, they do apply to this. But if you have a veteran, and it's not a widow, the widows can't get in here. I know that's terrible. It sounds terrible, but this is only for the veterans, or the widowers. If the woman is the veteran, which we've had that, as well. But if you have wartime service, you can get in the VA state homes, and these are run by the state of Alabama, not the feds. So out of these state homes, some of them have longer waiting lists than others. So here's an example. We have a client that had no family that called our law office in North Alabama and asked if we would be his power of attorney because he's in the nursing home. So we went over and met with him, and he trusted us to be his power of attorney. We sold his house, keeping him informed the whole way. So we put some money in his bank, and he had too much money with that account to qualify. So he's private paying for the nursing home at $8,000 a pop. And but guess what? He's a wartime vet. So we filled out the application for him since he had nobody to help him, got the doctor's letters that are associated with that, signed by the medical director of the nursing home in North Alabama. And we applied for the Alex City home, even though he's in North Alabama, because that one had the least waiting list. But we put our preference on there that he would rather be in the Tut Fan home because he's from Madison County, and that is in Madison. So guess what? So we got a call last week where Alex City said they have an opening in Madison, so he doesn't have to come here first. He can go directly to Madison. So needless to say, he was very excited. He gets to be in his home county. He does have some friends there that can come see him. So he didn't have to go all the way down to Lake Martin. He can be near his home. So these are, don't overlook the ability for your patients to get in these. We've got clients in every one except for Bay Minette, I guess, because we're geographically, far away from the coast, right? But these are very good. So we've talked about aid and attendance, and how that can benefit, and how the new 2018 laws have made it more difficult, but that pre-planning is a key. Don't give up on it. I have to tell people we're going to do a 36-month countdown and get you the VA benefits. Well, if they're 90, that doesn't sound that great to them. But I have had people come back in here at 93 and 95 and going, well, why didn't we do this 3 or 5 years ago? So we're all living longer. So y'all can ask questions about aid and attendance, but I want to tell you about service connected. Now, this doesn't seem quite as much like elder law, because the aid and attendance benefit is for caregiving. So that's why elder law attorneys all over the country do that. When I wanted to mention, y'all have seen these folks that, of course, the veteran service officers at the courthouse, and there's not one at every courthouse, but they can file for aid and attendance. And then you have these organizations that can do it, that some of your companies may use, and they can do it, and they may charge a small fee for the analysis, but they can't charge for the application, like we can't charge for the application. But I will tell you, I'll take a second and tell you the difference between an elder law attorney that did all those years of education and has practiced for many years, like I've practiced for 32. What we can do different is see the big picture. And we can also do their Alabama estate plan, whereas the non-lawyers that do this, the VA, they're really just doing the VA. So, they may not be seeing the complete big picture, and they can't do the trust for the pre-planning. So, I'm not saying they don't get people awarded. I'm just saying that is a takeaway. I know some assisted livings in town, their home offices and other places and things like that. And they use some of these, veteran services that do that, and they refer to them. But, again, I'm not saying they don't get people awarded, but, we can look at the big picture. And then appeals are a big deal. So you can appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals, and you can actually appeal to a federal court, and they definitely can't do that. I don't think they appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals, because those are judges. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you the difference in that and other services that may be applying for aid and attendance, just because you need to know. And we have to be accredited to even talk about VA benefits, and we have to keep that accreditation up with continuing legal education. So that's aid and attendance. And of course, the accreditation applies to service connected too. So what I was telling you, this is not really like elder law, although it is a monetary award. But I wanted to show you this real quick. I know we're running out of time, so go ahead, and if you have questions, send them in. So the VA assigns a rating based on somebody's injury or illness that occurred on active duty between 0 and 100%. And 0% is considered to be non-compensable. They don't get any money for it. The money awards range from 0 to about $3,500. Injury or illness that happened on active duty. Guess what? There are no asset or income requirements. So you see the big difference in aid and attendance right away, right? And like the aid and attendance, there's a doctor's letter that your own doctor fills out for aid and attendance. Well, service connected is based on even more medical evidence, because you got to prove what? You got to prove the injury or illness and that it happened on active duty and how severe it is to get the percent rating, right? So 10% gets you about $150 a month. So you see the difference. Compare these amounts to that last sentence there on this slide. Compare these monthly award amounts to aid and attendance, right? Look, 20% rating, which is usually for hearing and tinnitus, only gets you $300 a month. Well, if a veteran can get $2,050 because he can't do some of his activities of daily living, and we've got him otherwise eligible because of the assets and income, he can get $2,050. He's not going after a 20% rating. Look at this, 50% rating is only $958. So we might prefer to go after the aid and attendance, right? Even if we've got the right veteran that qualifies for both, or we apply for both at the same time and get the aid and attendance first, right? So you have to have an attorney that knows service connected to even somebody to suggest that. Look at this, 70%. Well, let me tell you, back to 50%. We try to get.
We have a question, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's I work for hospice and routinely submit VA aid and attendance applications on behalf of my patients. The only submission method I'm aware of is mailing in the application, and after sending it off, I am not able to track the progress. Are there any online methods for submission and tracking?
Yes, there are. The VA does not make that easy. The first thing I would say is be careful about sending multiple applications if you're not accredited. even if you're not putting your name on them, the VA could call you out on that. But I won't. I'm not beating you up on that. I know you're helping your folks. So the VA publishes some electronic methods, but they're not easy to do. In fact, they're very difficult. So I have one that we get as part of a subscription service that we can upload. But you know what? They still say that you should submit it in paper to Janesville, Wisconsin anyway. So what I do is we send it has to go to a PO box. So we send it tracking, and then I calendar to either call or send in a trigger form where it asks the VA to let me know the status. But you can call. There is a VA hotline that you can call, and they will tell you very vaguely that they have received it, and they currently do not show that they're in need of other information. So that's a big deal. That there's a 1-800 number. I believe you can get it at va.gov. And then, so you can call, and then I use a trigger form a lot of the times, and but that is a problem, because if they don't receive it, you don't know that they're not processing it. You don't know what you don't know. So I just got a letter yesterday, a client did, that said that if you sent a VA application during this time, that it may not have been processed. That means they had a problem at their intake center. So that is a possibility that they didn't receive it. So that's an excellent question. I'll type my email into that chat before y'all go here in just a minute. So real quick. So you see, you have to get up to a 90% rating. Stop. The green light just came on. So I might rather apply for VA aid and attendance if I have an eligible vet, because 90% is going to be hard to get, right? But look at the jump at 100%. Now it goes to $3,300 a month. If I can get that, I want to get that, right? So that's why we might go for aid and attendance first. And I started to mention the 50%. If you get 50, you can, and you're a military retiree, you can keep your retirement benefits and get the disability compensation, the service connected. That's huge. Look at the 70%. The VA pays for your nursing home. So what have we been talking about here? Long-term care, right? Well, if I get $1,529 a month, but if I have to go into nursing home and the VA pays for it, that's a big win. So my point is here, we have to triage these people as they come in, and only an attorney that does aid and attendance and service connected can tell you these things. And there's not that many that do service connected. And I'm not saying that for my own benefit. It's just a fact. So anyway, so y'all click on the questions, or let me put my email in there real quick before everybody jumps off, and then y'all can email me after the fact, because this is really something that you should not forget that's out there. So remember, estate planning and long-term care planning are best planned together. That's when you hear your Elder Law 101, which I'm not teaching that, but when you hear that, you're going to hear a lot of this. I'm sure whoever it is really good, but you're going to hear,
you know him, just Bill Nolan, and
yeah, Bill's
we
great
look
guy.
forward to that. And again, my apologies, y'all. Next week is not Medicaid; it's Elder Law 101. That's my mistake and only my mistake, and I apologize. We thank you again, John, for today and the last 3 days you spent with us. It's most helpful, and y'all know when when I send your certificates this evening, I will also, I'll copy John, so you'll have a way, in addition to this, where he's posted his email in our chat room, you'll also have an email from, with his email to reply. And I would encourage you to ask questions of John. I mean, you can see the nuances of these benefits, and I can't remember the word you use, brain teaser, but or something like that. But it's it's so complex that it does require someone with experience and understanding and empathy like John has. So John, thank you again. It's been really an honor and pleasure to have you talk with us. Our hour has come to a conclusion. Y'all remember the code word is service with Survey Monkey. Thank you for being here. Social workers, you'll get 1.0 hours, nurses 1.2. We're accredited by both state boards of nursing and social work. We thank you. We wish you a happy day and a great week, and we'll see you Thursday.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.